Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing good. A little bit. Going to be looking back and forth at the TV between the Rangers game and around the time when the tree lighting happens. I'm going to watch the tree lighting ceremony for the comfort of my own home. Also excited about attending the Queens baseball convention this Saturday.
Very cool, man. Yeah, I forgot the tree lighting ceremony is tonight, so that's pretty cool. As we usher in the holiday season, you got the Queens baseball convention coming up on Saturday that you're going to be attending, and I also want to throw one last thing in here before we really get rolling. I want to give a shout out to a friend of both of ours, a guy who we both really like, who returned to the airwaves today for the first time since his surgery. We both want to give a big Best Seat in the House podcast shout out to the great Anthony Cumia on making his return to the airwaves today. It's been far too long since we heard that voice, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. It's good to hear and see the great Anthony Cumia again. Glad he made it out of it. Glad he made it out of this whole situation. He was in the hospital and stuff. He made it out okay, and he's back, better than ever. We're back. I got reminded of that song the moment I realized Anthony was going to be back.
That's true. The old Jim Norton Van Halen song. We're back. And you're right. That's how it felt today with Anthony and Gavin out there today.
Yep. So definitely was great to see. It was great to see Anthony back, not missing a beat. Happy to see him back. A Festivus miracle.
You're right. Definitely a Festivus miracle for Anthony. So once again, great to see Anthony back in the saddle again, as Anthony's back on the Compound Media airwaves. And as we've said many times on this show in the past, if you're not subscribed to Compound Media, please do yourself a favor and check it out. They have a lot of great programming over there. Not only just the great Anthony Cumia show, but they bring in Gavin McGinnis every Wednesday. They have, Bill Schultz with the morning show, and also the great Gino Bisconti over there. So it's only $9 a month. So do yourself a favor, subscribe to Compound Media. Right, Dan?
Yep, and for those of you who complain that, I can't get in my car, haven't you heard of being able to hook up your phone to your car and listen to as an audio only? See, you can get it in your car.
That's true. Especially Compound Media has audio versions of all their podcasts as well. So not that this is a commercial for Compound Media, but do yourself a favor and check it out if you haven't already. Definitely some great stuff over there from our buddies.
Yep, and you can even do the same. Yeah. You can even do that same little trick with our show. Hook up the phone, the audio only, and you could also listen to our show in the car that way.
See, Dan, this is why we got that chemistry we always talk about. Because you're right, man. You could even check out that. That's a great segue to plug all the different ways you can listen to our podcast if you want to check it out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts today, be sure to check it out. We got the audio up, we got the visual up.
Yep, and plus, if you're driving a Tesla, you could access that Spotify in your car. You have that little thing that that tablet screen. It was like weird. Not too long ago, I was in an Uber, and the Uber happened to be a Tesla, and this is the first time I rode in one of those things. So it's kind of neat getting to see what one of those things were like in person. It's kind of tricky to open a door. The guy had to told me to open a door. It's kind of a little trickery, but I guess you got to get used to one of those things when you own one of those things. I've never owned a car. I've never been around anyone that owns a Tesla to really know what those things like. So I've never driven one, but that was the first time I ever rode in a Tesla was in an Uber not too long ago.
Wow, very cool. And also shout out to the owner, the creator of Tesla, the great Elon Musk, who, as always, has an open invitation to appear on this podcast anytime he wants. Right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. Especially after help bringing back an American's involvement in a contributing to our space program.
Very true. Very true, man. He's done a lot for that SpaceX. Love that company.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
that company.
I don't know why. I'm a bit of. I love watching the coverage of space launches, especially ever since you started to be able to get be able to watch space launches online. I just thought it was really cool, and I actually have seen. I saw it in person from the from the spot where people gather to watch it. I watched the final launch of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, which was really cool. And yes, I was thinking of that O&A clip the whole time I'm watching that launch.
Space Shuttle Endeavour.
Yeah, when I heard they were discontinuing the Space Shuttle program, I just had to go to see it launch. And the fact that it was the Endeavour, I kept getting reminded of that code, Renal Endeavour. and I was even reminded of that when my brother was posting pictures from they have it in a museum in California, and he's posting pictures of the Endeavour on display, and I was thinking, and I quoted that in the comments.
Absolutely, man. I think of the same thing every time I heard of a Space Shuttle Endeavour too. So you're not alone on that. And so let's we got a lot to get into tonight, Dan. I mean, New York sports is sizzling right now. There's so much going on. Obviously, as we're recording this show tonight, we got the New York Rangers taking on the Detroit Red Wings at Madison Square Garden. National TV matchup on TNT over here. No score in the early goings of this game so far. We'll check in on that a little bit later and talk about the Rangers' hot start to the season a little bit later as well. But we did have some big breaking news today, and normally we start with the football, and I've been keeping the Jets off to the back burner for a little while, because obviously they've been playing like crap. The Giants have won 2 games in a row. They're rolling into their bye week right now with a 4-8 record. Not fully dead yet. They still have a tiny little bit of a pulse. So the Giants still are, relevant to a certain extent. And the Jets are too. The Jets are 4-7, not much better. But, hanging on with that pulse by a thread. But Dan, the big news that came out today, which if you know anything about the way that the NFL handles their IR situation now, the clock starts today. And that's a big thing for the Jets, as the thing that we've all been anticipating. The Jets opened up the 21-day practice window for Aaron Rodgers to return from IR. Now, if you're not familiar with what this means, I'll explain it to you for a second, because it is a little bit confusing. So back in the day, the rules for IR in the NFL have changed a lot over the last few years. Now, when you put a player on IR in today's game, there's 2 different IRs. There's in-season IR, where you can keep a guy on there and he has to at least miss 4 games, which is what Aaron Rodgers was on right now. Or you can just put a guy on season-ending IR and you're not touching him for the rest of the year. Most of the time, they don't do that until late in the year, when for a fact there's no shot the guy's coming back. Aaron Rodgers, they stuck on the regular IR, for whatever reason. Now, the deal with him coming back on this is that he has been cleared for football. I forget the way that they worded it. It was he's been cleared for football activities, I guess, is the way that you would put it. But he has not been cleared for contact yet. Now, that could come at any point in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks even, because as you know now, this being Wednesday, November 29th, the Jets now have 21 days from today to activate Aaron Rodgers. And if they don't activate Rodgers within that 21-day time frame, then he's done for the year. You have to, just like the Jets did the same thing earlier this year with Dwayne Brown, their left tackle, who's returning from injury. He sustained that injury in the offseason that he had to have corrected with surgery. He's still having a long time coming back from it. In early November, the Jets opened up his 21-day window and said he was going to come back quickly. Now, unfortunately, that didn't really happen. I think that Dwayne Brown is a little bit more injured than the Jets are leading us on to believe. And he to be honest, at this point, I'd be even surprised if we saw him again this season. But the crazy thing is that now he's back on the roster because the Jets were forced before last game about a week ago today. I believe it was last Wednesday was the last day the Jets had to decide if they're going to end Dwayne Brown's season or activate him to the main roster. And they chose to activate him to the roster. So not to get sidetracked a little bit on that whole Dwayne Brown experience, now you see that it really is like once you open up this window, the clock is on. There's no messing around. And the Jets have to be very confident that Rodgers is healthy enough to make this comeback to even open up this window, right, Dan? Now, what do you think, now having heard everything that goes along with that, what do you think of the Jets open up this window? I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? It's only 11 weeks since he had the surgery.
Well, I guess you got to give credit to the the doctors that they spared no expense in the medical in the doctors who performed the surgery and stuff. So I guess everything's decided that he can make it back, and he's right now he's going on ramping up to his little training montage to get ready and come back. And even though the Jets are probably far out of it at this point, he does want to be able to go. He wants to go into next season not being a little rusty, like having not played practically all of this year. So he wants to be able to just to show. I feel like show what he's got for next year. I feel like kind of just trying to get those coming back from the injury jitters over with. That big, because that people don't realize that's a big part of coming back. An athlete coming back from the injury is getting up to speed in the game, because it's a lot different when they're playing, when they're training and stuff, or to practice. Is when they come back from a game. That's really when they really ramp up that part of the recovery process, is getting that rust off.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what you just said, Dan. Rodgers definitely, he's the type of guy that likes to be motivated by people doubting him. And, I think everybody doubted him after the season last year where he had the injured finger, but still gutted it out and had a tough year with the Packers from a team perspective. Because if you look at his numbers personally, even though I guess it was down from a typical Aaron Rodgers season, I would literally give my blood to have a quarterback have a season like that for the Jets this year. Because if the Jets had quarterback play anything like Aaron Rodgers was last year for the Packers, the Jets are in a playoff spot right now, hands down. But to keep going on this, Dan, I think, there's a lot of truth to what you said. But I got to say, all year, since we've been seeing the progression of Rodgers, I really thought for a lot of the year that Rodgers was going to come back at the end of this year, no matter what. If the Jets are 4-9, the Jets are, worse than that, whatever it ends up being. But yesterday on the McAfee show, Rodgers was, for the first time, it kind of looked to me like he was saying that there is a chance that if the Jets do fall out of it big time, which means like the way we looked at it too is right now, I think 10-7 gets you in, no doubt about it. But to get to 10-7, the Jets have to go 6-0 for the rest of the season. I don't know if that's happening. The worst they could probably do to make the playoffs is go 5-1 and get to 9-8. anything less than 5-1, if you're 8-9, there's no shot of getting in the playoffs. And to be honest, because the Jets right now are 2-6 in the AFC, even getting one of the tiebreakers at 9-8 isn't that likely for the Jets. So there, a lot of things are going to have to break right for the Jets for this to even be possible. But this is the first time that I really think that now the Jets have to win these next two games. The next two games now are against the Falcons this Sunday and the Houston Texans the week after that. The Jets have to win the next two games to get to 6-7, and then they'll be going into Miami on December 17th with a 6-7 record, still alive in the playoff hunt. And I believe, and I still can't believe that this is even a possibility, but I really think that if the Jets win the next two, Aaron Rodgers is playing on December 17th. And you know who called that about 2 months ago? This guy right here.
Yep, that's right. This guy gets it.
a little shout out to our boy Gino. But yeah, man, it would be crazy. But as we talked about, Dan, it's if the Jets go out there and right now they've announced that Tim Boyle is the starter for the game on this Sunday in Atlanta. They're gonna have, you cannot mess around. If you actually want to see Aaron Rodgers on the field this year, winning this game on Sunday is an absolute must-have. They cannot lose this game. It's the absolute biggest must-win the Jets have had in a long time, right?
Yep, exactly. Probably every Jets fan, including yourself, every Jets fan I know is going to have their eyes on this game. And if the Jets lose this game, I'm probably, since of course this is going to be a week, this is going to be an off week where my Giants aren't playing, so I'm pretty much going to revert to being from Giants fan Bobo to pretty much emotional support for my Jets fan co-host.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be in that emotional support co-host role, man. No doubt about it. Especially if the Jets lose that game.
Yep. And I think you remember once. You probably saw even though it's a real ad. And by the way, just bear in mind this is a very serious issue. By the way, that you should if you know anyone that deals with this kind of situation, you should give them that phone number. But what happened was on the subway. Remember that photo? I text you a photo of an advertisement on the subway.
Yes.
Yeah. For that kind of issue, when I said that, I guess I said, yeah, this is around if you need it.
Obviously, yeah, just a little joke between us. The suicide hotline prevention, which Dan said, obviously, if anybody is having an issue with that, please give that phone number a call. But it's just a joke between us. That wasn't posted on social media or anything. And it's but in a lot of ways, man, it's a callback to that Larry David episode with the suicidal Jets fan. And man, if you're a Jets fan at this point and you haven't thought about harming yourself, you're probably not a real Jets fan, because man, this team just absolutely tests every single thing that you've ever experienced in your life. It's insane. It's like it's like a crazy train ride that's going off the rails.
Yep, exactly. And I have to say, I hope one day it gets to the point where we can have an episode where you and Larry David are watching a Jets game, and I'm there with really no rooting interest in the game, but I'm just watching this like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm or something, and I'm just watching a show of you watching a Jets game with Larry David, seeing how you and Larry react Yeah, that would be great to do that. Maybe get some pastrami sandwiches from famous Ben's over in Bayside. Which by the way, they make a killer pastrami sandwich there. By the way.
Very true. Very true. I've never had it. I've heard nothing but good things though. But yeah, that would be some a hell of some bonus content right there if me and Larry David ever got to watch a Jets game. But hell, if it was anything like that garbage game we saw on Black Friday last week, where the Jets lost 34-13 to the Dolphins, there'd definitely be a lot of profanity flying around. Because you know what, Dan? The frustrating thing about this is that the offense has been so bad, they haven't even allowed the defense to just pin their ears back and defend a lead at any point. I mean, look at this, Dan. The Jets with that loss, right? They fell to 15th out of 16 in the AFC teams. The only team worse is the 2-9 garbage Patriots. And over the last 5 games, the Jets are averaging 8.5 points. 5 games, they've scored 13 twice, they've scored 10 once, and they've scored 6 twice. It's almost unimaginable that an NFL offense could be that bad. And Dan, I hear people making all the excuses in the world for, the Jets, their offensive line is hurt, their quarterback is hurt, and Zach Wilson's a backup, and they're starting Tim Boyle, which I'd still rather see Trevor Siemian. I don't understand why Tim Boyle is starting, but whatever. You as a Giants fan saw your two starting quarterbacks go down. Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, the backup, both got hurt, both missed extended periods of time, and Tommy DeVito was able to come in behind a shattered offensive line that the Giants have had just as many injuries as the Jets have had this year, right? Or at least right around the same amount. And the Giants are still able to go out there and win back-to-back games, and they dropped, they only scored 10 in the win against the Patriots, but they scored 31 points against the Commanders. The Giants have been able to move the ball a little bit, even with Tommy DeVito, who nobody even knew coming into this season. So I don't want to hear all the excuses for the Jets offense. Scoring 8.5 points a game over a 5-game stretch in the NFL is completely unacceptable on every level, and every coach and every offensive player on the team needs to be held accountable for it.
Yeah, exactly. As that little character in Adventure Time, the lemon grab would say, unacceptable! Unacceptable! Was that a good impression of lemon grab?
That was good. That was definitely a good impression. It's better than I could do.
Yeah, I think that impression would make the guy's voice actor. I think that was Billy West proud.
Did Billy West really do his voice?
Yeah, I believe Billy West did the voice of Lemon Grab.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. Love Billy West.
I
was just watching some I was just listening to some old school Howard Stern stuff with Billy on there, and Billy's freaking hilarious, man. That guy, one of the best voice actors, one of the funniest guys around.
Yeah, that guy's definitely a legend. Definitely a legend. I mean, so many voice actors. I mean, even to this day, if you've seen it, and during anything you're watching on TV, if you see an M&M's commercial, you're hearing his voice work. He does the voice of the red M&M. And of course, if you remember Ren and Stimpy growing up, like I do, which I still love that show to this day, that was his voice. And of course, you also remember Doug Funny, Philip J. Fry, and Futurama. The man, one of the greatest voice actors of our time.
So many. You're right about that, man. And just to keep it rolling along here too, I want to keep it going with the Giants before we wrap up. I figure we'll do the Giants real quick because they're on their bye week right now anyway, and it was a nice win, but it was also kind of an excruciating game. We've seen a lot of that in New York football this year with these offenses. But the Giants went out and had a nice win. I mean, it was 10-7. Offensively very uneventful, but once again, Wink Martindale's defense did a really good job forcing a bunch of turnovers against this Patriots offense. getting 3 interceptions all day, 2 from Mac Jones, 1 from Bailey Zappi. And the Giants offense, wasn't great, but they were able to get the job done against a very good New England Patriots defense. And, even though the Patriots defense is banged up, they're still very good and very well coached by Belichick over there. And as we were discussing on our Patreon show, which, by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, it's only $5, patreon.com/Best Eat in the House podcast. We appreciate the support. But it's actually the first Giant home win over the New England Patriots since 1987. So the Giants beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl in the time it took them to beat them in a home game. Very, very strange stat there, but definitely, even in a tough season for the Giants, a nice feel-good win over New England, right?
Yeah, nice little feel-good win. Also, I do have to say, because in that yesterday's game, right after that game, in honor of Tommy DeVito, I went on them. I pulled up my Seamless app, ordered myself a chicken parm sandwich.
Exactly, and you do the as Tommy's family was doing in there, the old Italian.
Yep.
Yeah, giving the old chef's kiss there, right?
Yep, I could tell you, I would love to have Tommy DeVito as a guest on this show.
Oh, I would love that too. I mean, a Jersey kid comes in playing for a team. I'm not sure if he was a Jets or Giants fan growing up. I'm sure he was a Giants fan, but kid from New Jersey playing, grows up 12 miles away from MetLife. Now he's starting a game in MetLife. Man, that's a hell of a story. I'd love to hear it straight out of his mouth, because whenever his NFL career is done, he's going to have a hell of a book to write.
Yep.
Talking about these last few weeks.
Yep, exactly. And I'd make sure to be online at the Barnes and Nobles or wherever the book signing would be in New York to get an autograph of that guy. I got a lot of respect for that guy. You could tell he's as tri-state area as they come.
Yeah, and he's a gamer that the locker room connects with. We see this every once in a while, man. Last year with the Jets, when the whole locker room turned on Zach Wilson, the team overly embraced Mike White. They were wearing Mike White shirts. Everybody was talking about Mike White, Mike effing White, this and that. Everybody loved Mike White, right? It's the same thing with the Giants now, too. Sometimes the quarterback's personality has to galvanize his team and bring his guys together. And Tommy DeVito seems like that type of guy for the Giants right now. Everybody on the team likes him. They believe in him. And even though they know that he's not the best or the most talented quarterback in the NFL, they know that when they go out there, this is a guy that pays attention to detail. He studies the game. He's a student of the game, and that he's going to do everything in his physical power to put the Giants in a position to win, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you get these guys that just come out of nowhere unexpectedly, and they become a lot of greatness. Also, if you look back in the history of the NFL, there have been some great quarterbacks that came out of very late in the draft.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. First and foremost, Tom Brady. But then you can really even look all over the draft right now, and even talking about a guy like that was undrafted, that is the story that everybody wants to replicate, and it's very tough, is a guy like Kurt Warner, who, this is a guy that wasn't drafted. He was bagging groceries in his local grocery store. He was playing for the Arena League, and the next thing you know, Trent Green gets hurt in St. Louis. They bring him in. Now he's a Hall of Famer. So people always love stories like that. You gravitate to stories like that. And, hey, no one's saying Tommy DeVito is going to be in the Hall of Fame right now. But if you can inspire your team, even for just a few weeks, that kind of thing gets remembered. And, Mike White's stint with the Jets will be remembered. Just like Tommy DeVito's stint right now with the Giants will be remembered by Giant fans. And, we've seen this type of thing before. But you've also seen the opposite, where right now there's a lot of talk going on about the Jets and what they should have done or could have done with the QB situation. Now, a lot of people will talk about Carson Wentz. And one of the things that I've heard in recent weeks is that Carson Wentz is just not a guy that connects to the other guys in his locker room. And if that's true, then I don't blame the Jets or the Giants, for that matter, for not bringing him in, because you don't need a guy like that, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you don't need a guy that just isn't going to connect with his teammates, because especially in a team game like football, you need that connection.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a very valuable asset. It's an ability that you don't really physically see, but if it's there, it's a key element in every great championship team.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. You know, you got the alpha male that's leading the locker room, and that has to be the quarterback in most spots. And you know, if it's not, you know, it really throws everything out of whack. And you know, we see the Jets as a big example of that. How, you know, with Rodgers down, man, they were a rudderless ship, and they were just drifting off into nothingness. But now, you know, you see that Rodgers is back in the building now. The team looks a little bit more focused, a little bit more driven, and you just hope that those dividends pay off on the field. But just to keep it with the Giants, though, now the Giants are going to be going to their bye week, as we mentioned. But when they return, we now know for a fact that, you know, as we were discussing on our Patreon show over the weekend after this Giants game this past Sunday, that there was a chance that the NFL was going to flex the Giants-Green Bay Packers game out of the Monday Night Football slot on Monday, December 11th. That's not going to be the case now. They're sticking with them because I think today or yesterday was the final day they had to decide if they were going to move it or not. They chose not to. So the Jets will remain on that Sunday game, and the Giants will remain on that Monday night game. So, you know, it's I'm sure a lot of Giant fans were hoping the game got flipped to Sunday. But hey, having one more Monday night game, a couple of weeks to get ready for it, you know, Tommy DeVito in prime time, or that's actually one other thing we're not sure about too, because the Giants technically can activate Tyrod Taylor if he's healthy. You know, that he's basically, what I'm saying is that he's missed the requisite 4 games to be on the IR now. So he can either A, remain on the IR, or B, the Giants can, just like the Jets did with Rodgers, they can open up his practice window and he can return at any point in that 3-week stretch. So it'll be really interesting to see if the Giants open up that practice window and Tyrod Taylor is starting on Monday the 11th, or will it be Tommy DeVito for the 3rd straight game? You know, what do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, that's all the whole little. It's just a whole dilemma there. Though I just have a feeling, just the way the team has been rallying behind Tommy DeVito, I just feel they're just gonna go with the hot hand the rest of the year. I feel like just something in my gut feels like that's what they're gonna go. And also, as much as maybe some people who are commuters, who are going in and out of New Jersey on a during their commute home in either direction, probably not really going to like the traffic that's going to cause a Monday night game. I heard at one point there was a time where they were reluctant that the New Jersey was trying to make, and everything was trying to make, they were reluctant to really want Monday night games taking place in the Meadowlands because of the traffic situation on that can occur on Monday night. But that's what's going to happen, and I guess that means we're going to get I'll get to watch another Manning cast for the Giants game, which is always great. I love.
That's a good point.
I love watching those. I always love watching. One of the things about that when the Giants play on Monday night is you also get the option of the Manning cast feed of the Monday night game, and those get I love watching those. It feels like I'm watching the Giants game with the Manning brothers.
It's a good point. It'll be interesting to see what Eli's breakdown is and his reaction to watching a Tommy DeVito game in real time. So that's a good point. I hadn't even considered that part of it yet. As I'm watching right now over my shoulder, the puck just dropped on the beginning of the second period for the Rangers and Detroit Red Wings. Still no score. And as a matter of fact, Dan, let's shift over there to a little hockey talk, as right now we're about halfway through, or just about that point in this game. A tight game so far, as the Detroit Red Wings are a pretty decent team. But let's start off talking with the last game the Rangers played. They lost a tough game to Buffalo. It ended up being 5-1. But, I mean, let's be honest, with 6 minutes left in that game, it was a 2-1 game that, they ended up scoring a fluky goal. Then they scored an empty net goal. And then it looked like the Rangers' back was kind of broken, and that was it. They put that last one in, make it 5-1. Hell, the Rangers have been playing so good hockey this year. You can't kill them for having one bad game. So, hey, I mean, you have a tough loss after an 8-1-1 stretch. Let's not forget the Rangers are 15-4-1 on the season. They had won 8 of their previous 10 games before that. The only other loss being a overtime shootout loss. So 8-1-1 during that stretch. I mean, you can't kill the team for having that tough game. Now, you turn the page and just try to get 2 points here tonight, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. That game was a little bit of a tough one. I did kind of was like, oh, how do you fucking lose to this team? Like, it was just one of those. But hopefully, that was just one little thing. One little patch. They did. I feel like the Rangers did, going into that game, kind of looked a bit worn out because they played back-to-back games against Philadelphia and against Boston the back-to-back days. So they looked a little bit winded playing the two very tough teams. And luckily for the Rangers and our fans like us, they won those 2 games. But I just feel like they just felt like they were a little bit, maybe a little bit winded from playing back-to-back games.
Well, I agree, Dan. And you know what? You make a good point. Not only was it the back-to-back games on Black Friday and that Saturday, but it's the teams they played against too. I mean, you played against John Tortorella's Philadelphia Flyers on Friday, who may not be a great team, but man, they play hard. They still have that old identity. Like, remember the Rangers used to be called the Black and Blue Shirts under John Tortorella because they weren't necessarily the most talented team, but they would work you over and just beat the hell out of you over and over and over again. And that's kind of the same thing that the Philadelphia Flyers are playing with now. The Rangers were lucky to beat them. They went out there and pounded the Bruins on Saturday. But once again, too, the Rangers put up 7 goals. They had to earn those goals, man, because the Bruins, they will beat the hell out of you. And a very physical game, no doubt about it. A lot of energy and emotion poured into that. So I do think you're right that everything that went into winning those 2 games on Friday and Saturday kind of played against the Rangers on Monday night because, like it or not, there's not that juice to playing Buffalo on a Monday night. Yeah, Adam Fox returning from injury tonight, definitely big for the Rangers. Unfortunately for them, Hedl and Kakko going to the long-term IR. Now, Hedl is going to be backdated to, I think, November 3rd, so there's still a possibility that he could come off relatively soon. I know he's been skating, but, I mean, just getting Adam Fox back is good news alone, right, Dan?
Yeah, that is just good news to have Foxy back, just a hard-nosed player. Just really has that whatever it is that just doesn't show up on the score sheet, but just really just helps shift that momentum on the team. Well,
absolutely, man, absolutely. And as we were talking here, it kind of got me distracted a little bit because the Rangers actually just scored. Artemi Panarin puts one in.
The Breadman has scored again.
Beautiful shot too, man. 12 goals. It really is crazy to think how Panarin, that first year for the Rangers, man, he was like on pace to score 40 goals. I mean, the way he was going, he might have even hit 50. He had 32. Actually, I guess he probably wouldn't have scored 18 goals in 10 games, but he was at least going to score 40 goals, and he had just a phenomenal season. But those 2 years after that, under Gerard Gallant, he was really, really good, but he was not as good as that first season. And this year now, 12 goals in the first 20 games. This guy he has completely turned around. He's playing that north-south game that, we heard Gerard Gallant, the former Ranger head coach, talk about in the past, that he wants to get these guys to stop playing that east-west game as opposed, and start playing a north-south game. Now, if you're not really understanding the verbiage there, what that means is basically stop fucking around. Stop trying to be fancy. Stop trying to skate to the left to avoid a defender. You go right to the net. That's what they call it, crash in the net. You go north and south, no east and west, and that's what it looks like Peter Laviolette finally has Panarin doing. That exactly what Gerard Gallant could not get Panarin to do. And boy, is it paying off right now. This guy is playing like one of the best players in the league right now. I mean, he's got like Connor McDavid type stats.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of knew. I knew this guy had it in him, and finally we got the coach that was finally able to put in place that system that is finally able to get the most out of Panarin's abilities, and it's showing. And we're in for one heck of a year this year.
Yeah, it's really looking like it, man. Peter Laviolette has this team playing great hockey, and boy, it is just such a joy to watch. And the fact that missing, one of their top players, not only defenders, but one of their top players in Adam Fox for 10 games, and in those 10 games they went 8-1-1. Man, that just really has to get you excited for the ceiling of this Rangers team, which could be very, very high. As I said, they're 15-4-1 to start the season to the first 19 games, this being game number 20, where Panarin already scored goal number 12. Rangers jump out to a 1-0 lead tonight over the Detroit Red Wings. Definitely a lot of intrigue over there. Also, a lot of intrigue going on with, how all these injuries and being on long-term injury reserve affects the Rangers' ability to accrue that cap space, which, to be honest, I've looked into it. I don't really understand if it hurts or helps them, but one guy who the Rangers got at the trade deadline last year actually was making his debut for the season tonight for the Detroit Red Wings. Former Ranger Patrick Kane made his season debut tonight after hip resurfacing surgery. And the interesting thing about that is that there have been at least 4 or 5 players who have had this surgery done. One of them being former Ranger Carl Hagelin, who unfortunately at the age of 34 had to retire and never played another game after having that surgery. But the most any player has ever played after having it is 47. Not just in a season, but I mean for the rest of their career, 47 games. So the odds right now are against Patrick Kane. But you know what? A guy that wanted to be here for the Rangers, and I'm sure if we, look, the guy had a rough year at the end of the year for the Rangers too. We know he was hurt. He was trying to do the best he could. He had a couple of good games in the playoffs until everything just fell apart. But I have no ill will towards Patrick Kane, and I wish him the best. Right, Dan? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I wish him the best, and more power to him trying to come back from an injury. That's never. I mean, it's not. It's a struggle not just for an athlete, but as a human being going through that. I've had relatives. I've seen friends and relatives go through the struggle of recovering, and they make it through it. It's a battle, the entire recovery process. I've seen it. I've seen friends and relatives go through it. So I have a clue. I have an idea what that's like. It's just a struggle. So you just gotta applaud when someone makes it back from an injury like that.
Absolutely, Dan. Best of luck to Patrick Kane. I hope he doesn't score a goal tonight, but I hope he looks good coming back. And hey, who even knows? We don't know what is going to happen this year. I mean, supposedly Capo Caco is going to be out for an extended period of time. Who knows if that I mean, they said it's not going to be season ending, thank God, because that would be awful if he got hurt for that long, this early in the year. But who knows if the Red Wings fall out of it and the Rangers are doing good, Patrick Kane could even be a Ranger again by, the trade deadline if he's playing well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of things that they'll look forward to in this season. That's really already had one heck of a season. That I don't want to jump the gun, but if it does turn out to be that this kind of season that we've been hoping for, I would Robert and I would gladly be would gladly be willing to be interviewed for the documentary about the season.
Oh hell yeah, you got that right for the video afterwards. You're right about that, buddy. No doubt.
Exactly. Because we know these highlight films. They interview some fans. These championship highlight films. So they definitely need to give us a call. The people who produce those films would need to give the two of us a call.
I'm down. We're available, by the way, Rangers PR people. So keep that open if you're wondering. And and unfortunately, out of the corner of my eye, I just saw 11 minutes left. The Detroit Red Wings tie the game 1-1 on the power play. So 1-1 right now, 11 minutes left in the second period. So we'll keep you up to date with the if you're watching this. It's unfortunately, hey, we're watching it live and reacting live. So sorry if you're seeing this on Thursday, but hey, we're trying to keep you up to date, even if it's a day late. But we're gonna move on to a little bit of baseball right now, even though we will keep you updated with the game as it unfolds in front of us and give you our reactions. But Dan, I don't know if you heard because the news broke within the last hour, but the Mets have actually made their first official signing of Major League talent under David Stearns and his new regime with the Mets. The Mets have actually signed former Yankee starting pitcher Luis Severino to a 1-year, $13 million contract. Now, before we get into anything about this, Dan, because let's not forget, Luis Severino was pretty bad this year. For the Yankees, and I believe I called him the worst pitcher in baseball at one point this year. What's your immediate reaction to seeing this? Because this is not, this is 100% a done deal right now, $13 million. It's been reported by Anthony DiComo of MLB.com, who covers the Mets. So this is not a rumor. It's actually happening, and Severino, done deal to the Mets.
Well, I gotta say, this probably isn't the biggest off-season signing of the season. There's gonna be some pretty big ones coming up soon, I have a feeling. I feel like this is more of a back of the rotation signing because we needed some rotation depth, and who knows how this turns out. Maybe a change of scenery, maybe somehow he pitches a little bit better at Citi Field, more of a pitcher's ballpark. But this is more of a back of the rotation signing, which I'm okay with. It's just and this is in terms of free agent signing, is just a little cheap deal, just a low risk, high reward kind of deal. So it's a little back of rotation signing. And unfortunately, we're not going to have the. Fortunately, that's going to take a little time. Maybe later in December, we're going to see the big names. Like if we pull off like signing a Yamamoto, that's going to be a bit later on, or Yamamoto or Ohtani or one of those is going to be a little bit later on. But so unfortunately, I don't expect to get any big announcements at the Queens Baseball Convention. As much as I would love to see all of a sudden like Steve Cohen walks in the building and just announced the Mets have signed like Yamamoto, and all of a sudden Yamamoto is introduced to all the Met fans at the Queens Baseball Convention. That'd be one heck of a way to make it to have the press conference. But we're not going to see anything like that. But it's just it's going to be mostly a lot of fellow Met fans discussing maybe all the signings going on, all the off season, and probably seeing when they do the State of the Mets panel, maybe where there's going to be talk about possible free agents, that kind of thing. Some of these panels, even the Baseball Night in New York panel, they bring in some of the talent from SNY has their little panel. So you got all these little panels that are going to be discussing the off season. There's going to be fans to chatter amongst fans about the off season, signing. So, but I don't really expect anything big. Maybe I don't. It's even a possibility we might not get the big fish. We might not get news of the big fish of us landing the big fish until after Christmas potentially, from what it looks like.
And nothing. Nothing is going to be happening for at least the next week or two. We still, I believe, December 12th or right around there is when the winter meetings start for the GMs and everything. So we're still a week or two away from that. And, but like you said, Dan, I think that's very well put, that it's a low risk, high reward sign. Although it's funny that now these days, $13 million is considered low risk, but hey, it's a brand new world, especially with Stevie Cohen. You're right. It's definitely, especially on the 1-year deal too, low risk, high reward deal for the Mets. Severino is definitely just a back end guy right now, but this is the type of guy who just 2 years ago was pitching, at a very high level for the Yankees late in the season too. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he pans out, what the Mets do with him. Like you said, Citi Field's definitely a little easier than Yankee Stadium, but unfortunately, we kind of lost that little thing the National League had over the American League with aging or, pitchers whose repertoire is deteriorating over the years, that when they came to the National League, with no DH, you used to get that pitcher spot bump. I remember everybody making a big deal about that with Pedro Martinez when he signed with the Mets in 2005. But that's that isn't the case anymore with the DH now. So you can't hide these guys anywhere, and you got to hope that like you said, that this Severino deal pans out, and you get something out of that back end rotation spot.
Yep, and exactly. And I gotta say, with that whole thing, how the DH is in both leagues, I feel maybe a lot of the players in them that are coming up in the minors might be a bit more acclimated to this, because they pretty much always have a DH in the minors these days. So they're pretty much, so you're gonna really, so I feel like as the years go by, we're really gonna see how these new rules get to how they affect baseball and how they affect the players and what we see. Also, I have to say we sort of started to see it a little bit now, since there's a universal DH. We've seen how teams have started to figure out the DH thing in the National League. So we're kind of starting to see it, but I feel the really tested time of this in baseball is really going to be over time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'll still state for the record that I absolutely vehemently hate the designated hitter in the National League. It makes me sick, although not as sick as the fake runner in extra innings. But I hate the designated hitter in the National League, and I really wish it was not here.
Yeah, I really don't like it. It's like I'm kind of weird. Like, I don't like it, but I also did not like that it just didn't make sense. The rule being in both leagues, that I felt like it was like you're gonna have the rule to just get rid of it, because it's a rule that never really made. I always thought it was weird. That really just never made sense. The rule, but this is the decision they chose to how to handle it. But we're just gonna be stuck with it. If we don't like it, but the rule I really don't like is the automatic runner. I just feel like it's just like doesn't really make the win earned. It was like a breath. It's like a breath of fresh air during the playoffs, seeing the old school extra inning rules. Wasn't that a real breath of fresh air during the playoffs? Old school extra inning rules. Seeing those long extra inning games again. Yeah, seeing that, but
I'm one of those people, Dan, and I'm sure that you would agree with me as being the type of baseball fan that you are. I used to love those long extra inning games. Like those games were great. Being, staying up late watching the Mets, I used to love those games. I hate that they took that away from us.
Yeah, those long. Some of the biggest moments happened in those long extra inning games. I mean, you could go back to like the game 6 of the 1986 NLCS. That 16 inning marathon against Houston. The Mets pulled off.
And I was born during that game.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm sure as your mother was giving birth, the whatever speakers that were playing a radio broadcast probably had Bob Murphy's voice was pumped out of the speakers of the birthing room there that day. I'm sure probably. And if you look at that highlights film from 1986, you see the footage of people all over the city. Like back in the day, when you had these stores that sell TVs, how they would have the TVs on display sampling, so you could see how the picture looks on these TVs, like how they look in action. And you had people looking through the windows of these TV stores, because the store owners put the TVs to the game. You had people with radios, probably Walkmans, whatever portable radios, listening to the radio. You see footage of like a hot dog stand with the portable radio, listening to the game, or people in their cars on their way back from work. People did not want to keep their eyes and ears off this game. When you look at footage of that, you had great moments. You had the Robin Ventura grand single game, which went into extra inning. You had a couple of great moments in the 2006 season. Remember that this game in May of 2006, the Mets against the
walk-off shot.
Yeah, Mets against. Yup, I was at that game, sitting in the picnic area, the little picnic area seat. Remember those bleachers at Shea Stadium?
Yeah.
And I had my DVR recording that game, and I also had my little earphones with my little portable Walkman with the radio feed on it. And I looked at it with my I went through my DVR and watched the TV broadcast of that game that I was at. And remember that call when Gary Cohen said, "We can all go, and it's out of here, and we can all go home."
Yep.
Yeah,
I remember that, man.
Yeah, can't forget that call. So we've had some big moments. Another extra inning game that I feel may have turned the tide on the 2015 season, that Wilmer Flores game, that walk-off home run game, with the day the Mets had just announced that Cespedes had been acquired in a trade. That extra inning game, that was. So you had some key moments in extra inning games. And speaking of another thing that's kind of we don't see anymore because of the universal DH, sometimes the pitcher's batting. We had some big moments remember that Bartolo Colon home run game? Those are like big moments where we're deprived of seeing these days.
Yeah, or the Dae-Sung Koo double of Randy Johnson, man.
I was at that game.
Yeah,
I was at that game.
I hate not having that anymore. That is just and as I see now, the Rangers are now down 2-1, unfortunately, to the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll have to keep our eye on that now. 6.5 minutes left in the second period there. But yeah, man. I mean, hey, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. It's with the DH rule and everything Manfred's done, all those great moments that we just said and just thought of off the top of our head wouldn't have even existed if Manfred was running the show 25, 30 years ago. So you're definitely right about that, man. And so as we just about wrap up here right now, and once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I do want to finish up real quick with the Knicks, as I do want to give a lot of credit to Tom Thibodeau and these New York Knickerbockers coming out of the gate. They looked a little rusty starting the season, but they have been on a real hot streak ever since. They're up to 10-7 on the season right now after they beat the Hornets 115-91 at the Garden last night. They improved to 3-1 in this in-season tournament. They advanced to the knockout stage. I don't know, Dan. I'm not too big on this in-season tournament for the NBA. What have been your thoughts on it so far?
I really think it's a dumb idea. It's like a dumb idea. It's just freaking now you got to worry about players getting injured in an in-season tournament. I just feel like there are just some players that are just probably maybe just botching these in-season tournament games because they don't want to really risk getting hurt in these in-season tournaments, I feel like.
Yeah, the in-season tournament games, they're meaningless. I didn't even know until I had to look up the other night. I was saying to myself, like, what is the in-season tournament for? What do the teams win? And the crazy thing to me is that the only thing that the teams win is money. So my question is, why the hell does any fan care if they win the in-season tournament if you don't win anything for it? You know what I mean? Like, why do I give a shit if Julius Randle has an extra $500,000 in his bank account, because that's what the winnings is. If your team wins, each player on your team gets $500,000. So Julius Randle, who already makes $25 million this year, is going to get an extra $500,000 if he wins. What the hell do I care about that for?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a dumb. I feel like this is just a dumb thing that was just forced on the NBA by ESPN, looking for some other revenue, because ESPN is really not as great as the ESPN we remember growing up with. All right. Well, it seems like only ESPN. There's other stuff besides basketball and football. I mean, I just feel like back in the day, ESPN was just a lot different. It was just a lot better back in the day. Remember that? It's just the way they had their programming. Like, they really, really did a good job of covering each of the sports. And plus, they helped a couple of other sporting events grow. I mean, we remember ESPN. Of course, we also remember ESPN2 with all those obscure sports. Like, I feel like ESPN2 was TV roulette, because you never know what weird thing you were going to see. Like, you would see like things like these tractor trailer races, or the world's strongest man,
the rodeo.
Yeah, you would see that, or you would see these guys, the truck pulling, or these lumberjack games. You would see.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and plus ESPN had a big hand in the sport of NASCAR becoming a huge deal, because they really took it early on when it was like early on in getting the rights to big stuff. They helped, in addition to, of course, CBS Sports, choosing to broadcast the entire 1979 Daytona 500 live, which gained a lot of viewers when a lot of people were snowed in. From what I looked up, a lot of people were snowed in, especially in New York, and they're watching this race that they took a chance to try to get broadcast live. It created a huge demand for coverage of the sport, and ESPN had a big hand in expanding the coverage of NASCAR, and every race being broadcasted live from start to finish. And even if you look, I bet some of you may be too young to remember those days. That's what that line in the movie Days of Thunder was all about. When they ask him what he knows about racing, and he mentions ESPN. Tom Cruise's character mentions ESPN. You remember the line in the beginning of the movie, right?
I never saw the movie, actually.
You never seen Days of Thunder? Probably one of the greatest sports movies, and probably a movie that had a big hand in the sport. I mean, in the sport blowing up, because there's probably a lot of interest in the sport that got gained from this movie being released.
Wow, very true, man. So yeah, the Knicks end up beating the Hornets the other night at the Garden, 115-91. So take that what you want. They're 3-1. They're in the knockout stage of that tournament now, but like what you're saying, who really gives a damn? I just care that the Knicks keep winning. And the way they keep doing that is tomorrow night, or if you're watching this on Thursday, tonight, the Knicks will be taking on the 2-15 Pistons at Madison Square Garden. It's crazy how god awful the Pistons are these days, but don't discount them too much, because I remember a couple of years ago too, the Knicks were playing an awful record Pistons team, took them for granted, ended up losing that game. So let's hope the Knicks get the job done tomorrow night, and beat the Pistons and keep this good streak going, because, after a rough first 4 or 5 games, the Knicks have been playing really good basketball lately.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like whatever the sport, whatever the opponent, you really can't discount the opponent. I feel like you need to play every opponent like it's a tough opponent.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man, especially in professional sports. The guys on the other team, even though they the team might not be doing that well. If you don't take them seriously, they could get you, anytime. That's why, especially in the NFL, they call it any given Sunday because, as we saw with the way the Jets have been going, who would have thought that the only loss the Eagles had all season so far is to the Jets? It's just mind-boggling sometimes. But I think the Eagles kind of took the Jets for granted, just like the Pistons, the Knicks did to the Pistons a couple of years ago. So don't fall in that trap again tomorrow, Knicks. Let's get this job done and get another win on the season and keep trucking in that right direction. But Dan, I think that's just about going to do it for us tonight. Before we get out of here, do you have anything that you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, you could follow me on Twitter or X as it's currently called now, but some people like myself still love calling it Twitter. So you could follow me Bobo103 NYC on Twitter, and also Bobo7118DK on Instagram. That's the same username I go by on Threads. Also, it's a one word, Daniel Curlin on YouTube. There's going to be some content on there, and like I said, if you subscribe to our Patreon, the Best Seat in the House podcast Patreon, you get early access to my YouTube videos now. All my from that point on, when the previous two YouTube videos, I started to do it like early access thing where all your Patreon subscribers, they get early access to these videos that I do, in addition to some of the other Patreon exclusives that we got. So definitely subscribe, get early access. It's only $5, and you get our post-game wrap-up shows. It's a great, and makes a great gift.
Exactly. That's very true, especially in this season. If you know a sports fan, it's only $5. Patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. So we appreciate all your support from everybody that's already subscribed and everybody that's about to. So we appreciate all that. We appreciate also you watching every week, like you're watching right now. So thank you for being subscribed. If you're not already, hit that button on the bottom, subscribe, give us a like if you think we've earned it. Don't forget to like us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow our show also at bsit_podcast and me, my last name, Cramer, NY on Twitter as well, or X, whatever you want to call it, and Instagram at Best Seat in the House podcast. So that's going to do it for us this week on Best Seat in the House podcast. We'll be back with you Sunday afternoon, late afternoon after the Jet game. It's a Jet Falcons 1 p.m. start at MetLife on Sunday. So we'll be live probably sometime between 4 and 4:30. Hopefully it's a happy recap, to quote the great Bob Murphy. And if not, hey, you'll be seeing me with my Giants fan counselor helping me get through this season. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and supporting us. For my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Cramer, and we'll catch you on Sunday, everybody, on Patreon.